Snow fell. It fell in thick, heavy flakes, blanketing the world in a serene, white silence. Each flake seemed to dance in the air before settling gently on the ground, adding to the ever-growing layer of snow that covered everything in sight. A thick blanket covered the world. The landscape was transformed into a winter wonderland, with every surface hidden beneath a pristine layer of snow. The once familiar terrain was now an unrecognizable expanse of white, stretching as far as the eye could see. Trees stood silent, branches heavy with white. The weight of the snow caused the branches to bow, creating a canopy of white above. The forest was still, the usual sounds of wildlife muffled by the thick snow. It was as if the world had paused, holding its breath in the cold. The wind howled, a lonely sound in the vast emptiness. It whipped through the trees, sending flurries of snow into the air. The sound was eerie, a reminder of the desolation that the snow brought with it. The world was both beautiful and harsh, a stark contrast of serenity and savagery. Three figures huddled together, small against the snowdrifts: Bob, Jasper, and Jim. They were tiny specks in the vast white landscape, their fur barely providing enough warmth against the biting cold. They pressed close to each other, seeking comfort and warmth in their shared body heat. Three cats lost and alone. Their world was white. Everywhere they looked, there was nothing but snow. The familiar scents and sights of their home were gone, replaced by the overwhelming whiteness. They meowed softly, their voices lost in the vast expanse of snow. White sky, white ground. The horizon blurred, making it impossible to tell where the sky ended and the ground began. It was a disorienting sight, one that made the cats feel even more lost. The world was a monochrome painting, devoid of the colors they were used to. Their breath rose in smoky plumes. Each exhale was visible in the frigid air, a reminder of the cold that surrounded them. The plumes of breath were the only movement in the stillness, a fleeting sign of life in the frozen world. The air was bitterly cold, biting at their fur, chilling them to the bone. They missed their human, the warmth of their home, the soft bed they used to curl up on, and the gentle touch of their human's hand. It was all a distant memory now, a stark contrast to the harsh reality they faced. The warm lap, the gentle strokes, the reassuring voice. Gone. They longed for the comfort and safety of their home, the familiar routine that had been their life. Now they were adrift in a sea of white, with only each other for company. The world was a cold, lonely place without their human. The memory of that day haunted them. The car, packed with belongings, their human rushing, stressed, not seeing them, the door closing, the car driving away, leaving them behind. They had waited. Days turned into nights, the snow kept falling, hunger gnawed at their bellies, fear chilled their hearts. They were alone, lost in a world of white. One day, a flicker of movement, three pairs of eyes focused, three tiny kittens stumbling through the snow, small, fragile, mewling pitifully, lost and scared. Bob, Jasper, and Jim felt a pang of sympathy. They knew this fear, this hunger. They couldn't turn away. Bob, the oldest and bravest, nudged the kittens closer. They needed warmth, needed comfort, just like them. A shadow loomed. A car speeding down the road, oblivious to the small figures in the snow. The mother cat, desperately searching for her kittens, darted across the road. A screech of brakes, a desperate yowl. Bob, in a flash of instinct, leapt. He pushed the mother cat out of the way, felt the rush of wind as the car sped past. He had saved her, but at what cost? Section 5. Shelter from the storm. The car was gone. The snowstorm had swallowed it whole, leaving nothing but an empty, desolate road behind. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. The storm was relentless, and the world seemed to be covered in a thick, white blanket of snow. Visibility was almost zero, and the cold was biting, seeping through every layer of clothing. It was a night where survival seemed uncertain, and the storm showed no signs of letting up. The mother cat, shaken but unhurt, rushed to her kittens. Her heart pounded in her chest as she navigated through the snow, her paws sinking into the cold, wet ground. She had been separated from them during the chaos, and the fear of losing them had driven her to push through the storm. When she finally saw them, huddled together and shivering, a wave of relief washed over her. She nuzzled each one, ensuring they were safe and sound. The bond between them was unbreakable, and she knew she had to keep them warm and protected. Bob, His side aching, limped back to Jasper and Jim. The journey had been treacherous, and the pain in his side was a constant reminder of the dangers they faced. Each step was a struggle, but the thought of reuniting with his friends kept him going. When he finally reached them, their faces lit up with relief and concern. They supported him, helping him to a nearby tree where he could rest. The camaraderie between them was evident, and they knew they had to stick together to survive the storm. They had found a new purpose, protecting these helpless creatures. The storm had brought them together, and in the midst of the chaos they had discovered a sense of duty. The animals, vulnerable and scared, needed their help. They built makeshift shelters using whatever materials they could find and ensured the animals were safe from the biting cold. The bond between cats and other animals grew stronger, and they realized that their survival was intertwined. They were no longer just fighting for themselves, but for the lives of these innocent creatures as well. They found shelter in an old, abandoned shed. The structure was rickety, and the wood creaked under the weight of the snow, but it provided a much-needed refuge from the storm. Inside it was dark and cold, but it was a haven compared to the relentless wind and snow outside. They huddled together, sharing body heat and using whatever they had to create a semblance of warmth. The shed became their sanctuary, a place where they could regroup and plan their next steps. A haven from the wind and snow. The storm raged on outside, but within the walls of the shed there was a sense of peace. The howling wind was muffled, and the snow could no longer reach them. They took turns keeping watch, ensuring that the structure remained intact and that no one was left out in the cold. The shed, though small and humble, became a symbol of hope and resilience. It was a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, there was always a chance for survival. The mother cat, grateful, shared what little food she had. She had managed to find a small stash of food, and though it wasn't much, it was enough to keep her kittens fed. She watched as they ate, their tiny bodies gaining strength with each bite. Her own hunger was a secondary concern. Her priority was ensuring her kittens' survival. The act of sharing, even in such dire circumstances, was a testament to her love and dedication. It was a small victory in the midst of the storm, a moment of warmth and care. The kittens, snuggled close, provided warmth. Their tiny bodies pressed together, creating a cocoon of heat that kept the cold at bay. They purred softly, a sound that brought comfort to their mother and the cats who had taken them in. The simple act of snuggling was a powerful reminder of the importance of connection and support. In the face of adversity, they found strength in each other, and their bond grew stronger with each passing moment. They were no longer alone. The storm had brought them together, forging bonds that would last a lifetime. In the midst of the chaos, they had found a sense of community and purpose. The shed, once a symbol of abandonment, had become a place of refuge and hope. Together, they faced the storm, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could weather any challenge. The journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next, united in their determination to survive and protect those they cared about. Days turned into weeks. The snow kept falling, food was scarce, but they shared every morsel, every drop of melted snow. They huddled together, bodies pressed close for warmth. They licked the kittens clean, kept them safe. They learned to rely on each other. Bob, brave and strong, led the way, searching for food. Jasper, gentle and patient, watched over the kittens. Jim, quick and agile, hunted for scraps. Together, they would survive. One day, the sun broke through the clouds. A ray of warmth touched the snowy landscape. The air, though still cold, held a promise of change. Hope flickered in their hearts. The kittens, stronger now, played in the weak sunshine. They chased snowflakes, tumbled in the snow, their playful antics bringing a smile to the older cats' faces. Life, even in this harsh winter, went on. Slowly, the snow began to melt. The days grew longer, the air, no longer biting, held the sweet scent of thawing earth. Spring was coming, and with it a promise of new life, new beginnings. Birds sang, tiny green shoots pushed through the melting snow. The world was waking up, and so were they. Their ordeal had changed them. They were stronger, more resilient, bound together by shared hardship and love. One sunny morning, a familiar sound. a car engine. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the entire landscape. The birds were chirping and the gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. It was a perfect day, one that seemed to promise nothing but happiness and joy. But for the cats, it was a day that would bring a mix of emotions. They had spent countless days and nights waiting, hoping and dreaming of their human's return. They had imagined it in their minds over and over again, each time with a different outcome. But as time passed, the reality of their situation began to sink in. Their human was not coming back. A sense of sadness and loss enveloped them. Their hearts ached with the realization that they were truly on their own. They meowed softly, their voices filled with longing and sorrow. It was a moment of acceptance, a moment they had dreaded but knew was inevitable. But amidst the sadness, there was also a sense of determination. They had learned to fend for themselves, to find food and shelter, to survive in a world without their human. They had become stronger, more independent, and, in many ways, they had grown up. They were no longer the same cats who had been left behind. Time had passed, and with it they had evolved. They had learned to fend for themselves, to find food and shelter, to survive in a world without their human. They had become stronger, more independent, and in many ways they had grown up. But with that growth came a sense of loss, a realization that they could never go back to the way things were. They had a new family now. In the time that their human had been gone, they had formed new bonds, created new connections. They had found a new sense of belonging, a new purpose. The mother cat and her kittens had become their new family, and they had grown to love and care for them just as much as they had loved their human. The mother cat and her kittens, they couldn't leave them. The bond they had formed was too strong, too deep. They had shared so much together, and they couldn't imagine leaving them behind. They had become a part of each other's lives, and they knew that they had to stay together, no matter what. They watched the horizon, a bittersweet ache in their hearts. They were not lost. They knew that they had made the right choice, that they had to stay with their new family, but it didn't make the absence of their human any easier. They looked ahead, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. They knew that they would always carry a piece of their human with them, but they also knew that they had to move forward. They had found their purpose. They were survivors. They had faced challenges and overcome them. They had found new love and new hope. They were no longer just pets. They were a family, a team, and they knew that they could face whatever the future held. With determination and pride, they looked ahead, ready to embrace the next chapter of their lives.